When former Special Forces Commander Marcus Blackwood was hired as security director for the ultra-exclusive Royal Crest Monaco, the luxury hotel's management immediately regretted their decision. "Your security protocols are scaring our billionaire guests," complained General Manager Henry Devereux, after Blackwood implemented comprehensive evacuation plans, disguised panic rooms, and rigorous staff training exercises. "This is a five-star hotel, not a military compound." Despite Blackwood's warnings about the hotel's vulnerability during the upcoming Global Finance Summit, management systematically dismantled his security measures, reassigning him to guest relations, a thinly veiled demotion intended to appease wealthy patrons uncomfortable with visible security. Instructed to wear a tuxedo instead of his security uniform, Blackwood was ordered to smile more and worry less, while serving cocktails to billionaires at the summit's opening gala. 4 hours into the event, as the world's financial elite mingled in the grand ballroom, all communications were suddenly jammed and the hotel's sophisticated electronic security systems went dark. Within minutes, a highly trained team of 27 armed attackers had seized control of the building, taking 300 of the world's wealthiest individuals hostage with specific demands: $10 billion in untraceable cryptocurrency within 6 hours, or hostage executions would begin with the Saudi oil minister. What followed would later be described by counterterrorism experts as the most extraordinary solo security operation in civilian history. As the paranoid security chief, they'd implemented a response plan so meticulously prepared that the attackers never realized it was being orchestrated by a single man. Royal Crest Monaco, Monte Carlo, present day. "Mr. Blackwood, our guests are here for pleasure, not to be reminded of global dangers," General Manager Henry Devereux stated with the practiced patience of someone explaining the obvious to a child. "The visible security measures you've implemented are creating discomfort." Marcus Blackwood maintained perfect composure, his military bearing evident despite the tailored suit that had replaced his preferred tactical attire. "The Global Finance Summit presents specific security challenges, sir. The concentration of high-value targets in a single location creates an exceptionally attractive—" Yes, Devereux interrupted with a dismissive wave. "We've hosted dignitaries and billionaires for decades, without incident. The Royal Crest's reputation is built on discretion and luxury, not metal detits and armed guards." Around the executive conference table, the hotel's senior management team nodded in agreement. Only Sophia Laurent, the hospitality director, seemed uncomfortable with the confrontation, her gaze shifting between Blackwood's meticulously prepared security documentation and Devereux's dismissive demeanor. "I understand the importance of guest experience," Blackwood replied evenly. "However, the risk assessment indicates—" "The risk assessment," Devereux interrupted again, his tone now openly condescending, "is theoretical. What's not theoretical are the 3 cancellations from VVIP guests, specifically citing your security measures as creating an atmosphere of paranoia." At 45, Marcus Blackwood had faced situations far more dangerous than a hostile management meeting. 15 years in special forces, including command positions in the world's most volatile regions, had taught him to recognize genuine threats, and the Royal Crest's vulnerability during the upcoming summit constituted exactly that. What he hadn't anticipated was the institutional resistance to addressing those vulnerabilities. "I was hired to establish world-class security appropriate for the hotel's clientele," Blackwood stated, his tone remaining professional despite growing frustration. "The protocols I've implemented represent minimum necessary measures, given the threat profile." Devereux exchanged glances with the financial director before responding. "You were hired to make our guests feel secure, Mr. Blackwood. There's a crucial difference between actual security and perceived security in luxury hospitality." The implication was clear. Appearance trumped substance in the five-star world of the Royal Crest. The reality that Blackwood's security measures had identified and addressed critical vulnerabilities was less important than maintaining the illusion of effortless luxury. "If I may," Sophia Laurent interjected carefully, "perhaps we could maintain some of Miss Blackwood's enhanced protocols while making them less visible to guests." Devereaux considered this compromise briefly, before shaking his head. "The board has been quite clear. The Royal Crest is not to feel like a secured compound. Mr. Blackwood's aggressive measures are to be scaled back immediately." "Sir, with respect, that decision significantly increases risk exposure during the summit," Blackwood responded, his tactical mind already calculating potential consequences and contingency options. "Your concerns are noted," Devereaux concluded with finality. "However, the decision stands. Furthermore, given guest feedback, we believe your talents would be better utilized in guest relations during the summit itself." Blackwood raised an eyebrow, the only external indication of his surprise at this effective demotion. "Guest relations, yes," Devereaux confirmed with a thin smile. "Your background and bearing make you an excellent candidate for VVIP interaction. You'll be assigned to the Grand Ballroom during the opening gala. Sophia will provide appropriate attire and protocol briefing." As the meeting concluded and executives departed, Sophia remained behind, her expression conveying apologetic understanding. "I know this isn't what you expected when you took the position," she offered quietly. "I expected resistance to comprehensive security," Blackwood acknowledged. "I didn't expect to be converted into a glorified butler, while leaving critical vulnerabilities unaddressed." Sophia glanced toward the door to ensure their privacy before responding. "For what it's worth, I've reviewed your security assessment. Your concerns about the hotel's exposure during the summit are valid, particularly regarding the underground access points and communication vulnerabilities." This acknowledgement from the hospitality director was unexpected. Blackwood studied her with new interest. "You have security background, former intelligence analyst before switching to luxury hospitality," she replied with a slight smile. "Most of the management team sees only liability and guest inconvenience. In your protocols, I see necessary precautions for genuine threats. Unfortunately, your colleague's perspective prevails," Blackwood noted, gathering his rejected security documentation. Sophia hesitated before responding. "Not entirely. While official protocols are being scaled back, nothing prevents unofficial preparation. I can provide access to areas you might find relevant for contingency planning." This subtle offer of alliance represented the first positive development since Blackwood had joined the Royal Crest's team 3 months earlier. Throughout his military career, he had learned that sometimes a single ally in a resistant environment could make the critical difference between success and failure. "I appreciate that," he acknowledged simply. "In the meantime," Sophia continued, "I suggest compliance with your new guest relations role. A tuxedo and champagne tray provide excellent cover for continued observation of security vulnerability." Blackwood permitted himself a small smile at this unexpectedly sophisticated understanding of tactical positioning. "Not my first undercover operation." Over the following week, as preparations for the Global Finance Summit accelerated, Blackwood maintained perfect compliance with his reassigned duty. The Royal Crest's Grand Ballroom represented the pinnacle of European luxury. Crystal chandeliers illuminating marble floors, priceless art adorning gilded walls, and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Mediterranean. For the Global Finance Summit's opening gala, the hotel had transformed the space into a showcase of opulence designed to impress even the most jaded billionaires and dignitaries. Marcus Blackwood moved through the gathering with practiced efficiency, his tuxedo and professional demeanor rendering him nearly invisible among the wealthy guests. While outwardly performing his assigned guest relations duties, his military-trained senses remained acutely focused on security assessment. "Mr. Blackwood," Henri Devereaux approached, champagne in hand and several VIP guests in tow. These gentlemen were expressing concern about rumors of regional terrorist chatter. "Perhaps you could reassure them about our security measures." The irony of being asked to provide security assurances after having his actual security protocols dismantled wasn't lost on Blackwood. Nevertheless, he responded with diplomatic professionalism. The Royal Crest maintains comprehensive security appropriate for our distinguished guests, he stated carefully, offering nothing specific while remaining technically truthful. One of the guests, whom Blackwood recognized as a Saudi petroleum minister, appeared skeptical. We've heard that Monaco police identified specific threats related to the summit. All credible intelligence is incorporated into our security posture, Blackwood replied, again avoiding specifics while noting the minister's unusual knowledge of threat assessments that weren't public information. Devereaux, clearly uncomfortable with the conversation's direction, quickly redirected. Mr. Blackwood previously managed security, but now ensures our most distinguished guests receive personalized attention. Speaking of which, I believe the Emir of Qatar has just arrived. If you'll excuse us. As Devereaux led the VIPs away, Sophia approached under the pretext of adjusting Blackwood's service tray. Problems? She inquired quietly. Information leak, Blackwood responded at the same volume. The Saudi minister referenced police intelligence that wasn't publicly disclosed. Sophia processed this with subtle concern, meaning either police sources are compromised or someone's establishing cover for advanced knowledge of what's coming. Blackwood completed, his tactical mind already calculating implications. Their exchange was interrupted by the arrival of additional dignitaries, pulling Sophia toward her hospitality duties, while Blackwood continued his circuit of the ballroom. As he served champagne to a group of tech billionaires, his attention was drawn to a new security detail accompanying a late-arriving Middle Eastern finance minister, their positioning and vigilance indicating professional training rather than typical private security. It was a subtle anomaly, but throughout his special forces career, Blackwood had learned that recognizing such anomalies often meant the difference between life and death. Something about their formation and movement patterns triggered his combat-honed instincts. He was adjusting his position for better observation when the first indication of the coordinated attack occurred, so subtle that only someone with Blackwood's training would have recognized its significance. The ballroom's ambient lighting flickered momentarily as the hotel's primary power system transferred to backup generators. Simultaneously, the security monitors visible near staff positions went dark, indicating complete system failure. For the wealthy guests and ordinary staff, these momentary glitches registered as minor technical issues in an otherwise perfect evening. For Blackwood, they represented the opening moves in what was clearly a sophisticated operation. Shifting his position to a service alcove, he verified what he already suspected. His mobile phone showed no signal, indicating communications jamming. The hotel's security systems, electronic locks, and communication networks had been systematically disabled in a coordinated sequence that could only be the prelude to a planned attack. Blackwood had exactly 17 seconds to make his initial tactical assessment before the main assault began. In that brief window, he noted emergency exit positions, identified potential improvised weapons, and calculated immediate cover options that would allow him to maintain operational capability while concealing his true background. When the attack came, it executed with military precision. Multiple teams entered simultaneously through all 6 ballroom access points, their movements reflecting professional training and extensive preparation. Armed with suppressed tactical weapons and moving in coordinated patterns, they secured the room with an efficiency that Blackwood recognized from his own counterterrorism operations. The guests' reactions progressed from confusion to terror as the reality of their situation became apparent. Security personnel who had accompanied various dignitaries were swiftly neutralized, either having been specifically identified in advance or targeted based on obvious positioning. "Ladies and gentlemen, please remain calm," announced the operation's apparent leader, his accent suggesting Eastern European origin, though Blackwood suspected intentional misdirection. "You are now under the control of the People's Revolutionary Alliance. Cooperate fully, and you will remain unharmed while our financial demands are met." Blackwood maintained his service position, carefully controlling his body language to project the same fear as other staff members, while his mind processed tactical options. The attackers' movements, equipment, and operational precision indicated a level of training inconsistent with typical terrorist organizations. These were professionals, likely former military or special operations personnel, now working as mercenaries. General Manager Devereaux was roughly pushed to the center of the ballroom, his earlier confidence replaced by open terror. "I'm the hotel manager," he stammered. "Please, there's no need for violence. We'll cooperate fully." "Excellent," the lead attacker responded with cold efficiency. "You will assist in gathering your guests by nationality and net worth. We have specific priorities for our negotiations." As the hostages were systematically organized according to the attacker's plan, Blackwood used the controlled chaos to implement the first phase of his response. Maintaining the appearance of a frightened staff member, he gradually positioned himself near a service entrance, where he had previously cached emergency equipment. Across the room, he caught Sophia's eye momentarily.
A subtle nod confirmed what he had hoped. As a former intelligence analyst, she was maintaining her cover while positioning to provide assistance when needed. In a scenario where they were outnumbered and outgunned, having even one trained ally significantly improved operational possibilities. The attackers established a comprehensive control system with practiced efficiency, dividing the ballroom into sectors, positioning guards at all potential exits, and creating a command center at the main entrance. Their leader, now identifiable by the designation Sentinel used by his team, established communication with external authorities using the hotel's conference system. We currently hold 312 hostages, including 47 individuals with net worth exceeding $1 billion, Sentinel announced to Monaco authorities, and by extension, the international community. Our demand is simple: $10 billion in untraceable cryptocurrency, transferred to designated accounts within 6 hours. For each hour beyond our deadline, we will execute one high-value hostage, beginning with the Saudi petroleum minister. The methodical organization and specific financial knowledge further confirmed Blackwood's assessment. This was no ideological terrorist operation, but a sophisticated criminal enterprise using political rhetoric as cover. The targeting of specific high-value individuals based on accurate financial intelligence suggested extensive advanced planning and possible inside information. As the situation stabilized into the controlled tension typical of professional hostage scenarios, Blackwood continued his tactical assessment. The attacking force consisted of 27 operators divided into specialized teams: perimeter security, hostage control, technical operations, and command elements. Their equipment and protocols suggested military or special operations background, likely from Eastern European or former Soviet regions based on subtle tactical indicators. The hostages, comprising the world's financial elite, displayed reactions ranging from shocked compliance to entitled indignation. Several attempted to assert authority based on wealth or position, only to be swiftly and brutally educated about the new power dynamic. Others, particularly those with experience in unstable regions, demonstrated the quiet compliance that experienced hostages recognized as the optimal survival strategy. Blackwood noted with professional interest that several individuals among both hostages and staff maintained unusual composure, potentially indicating specialized training or prior experience in crisis situations. These could represent either assets for potential resistance or, more concerning, additional hostiles who had infiltrated the event in advance. As the attackers established their hostage operation, Blackwood identified the critical weaknesses in their otherwise professional approach. Despite their tactical sophistication, they were operating with a fundamental disadvantage. They believed they had neutralized all security threats through their systematic elimination of visible security personnel and electronic systems. What they couldn't know was that the most dangerous security element in the building was currently disguised as a frightened server, methodically analyzing their operation while planning a counter-offensive they wouldn't see coming. "You, server," one of the hostage controllers barked, gesturing toward Blackwood. "Collect all mobile devices from the eastern section. Any guest hiding a phone will be shot immediately." "Yes, sir," Blackwood responded with carefully calibrated, fearful deference, accepting the collection bag while using the assignment to extend his reconnaissance of the ballroom's current tactical layout. As he moved among the frightened guests, Blackwood maintained his cover while gathering critical intelligence on the attackers' positions, equipment, and protocols. Each interaction allowed him to whisper brief instructions to guests he identified as potentially useful: military veterans, recognizable by their reactions, security personnel who had maintained civilian cover, and others whose composure suggested specialized training. "When I create a diversion, move guests toward the service corridor," he murmured to a man he recognized as a retired British Special Forces operator, now working in private security. The man's momentary eye contact confirmed understanding without compromising either of their covers. Gradually, methodically, Blackwood laid the groundwork for a counter-operation that would require precision timing, misdirection, and the tactical advantage that came from being completely underestimated by his adversaries. The same excessive security protocols that hotel management had mocked were about to become the foundation for an unprecedented solo response to one of the most sophisticated hostage operations in civilian history.
The first 3 hours of the hostage situation proceeded according to the attackers' meticulous plan. Hostages were segregated by value, communications with authorities established, and control systems implemented throughout the ballroom. To all appearances, the operation was progressing with the clinical efficiency that characterized professional hostage scenarios. What the attackers couldn't detect was the systematic counter-operation being orchestrated beneath their carefully controlled surface. Marcus Blackwood, still maintaining his cover as a frightened server, had begun implementing a response plan that drew on both his special forces background and the excessive security preparations management had mocked. Using his assigned collection duties as cover, Blackwood had established covert communication with 4 key allies among the hostages: 2 with military backgrounds, 1 executive protection specialist, and Sophia, whose intelligence background provided crucial analytical support. Through subtle signals and brief whispered exchanges, he coordinated their roles in the developing counterplan. During a collection sweep near the service entrance, Blackwood seized a 30-second window between guard rotations to access his first equipment cache, a ventilation panel concealing basic tactical supplies he'd hidden weeks earlier. The small kit contained essential tools rather than weapons, a compact communication device capable of operating on emergency frequencies, lock bypass tools, and a hotel security access card he'd modified to function even with main systems disabled. Moving with practiced efficiency that balanced speed against detection risk, Blackwood secured these items within his server uniform before resuming his assigned collection route. The brief operation went unnoticed by the hostage takers, who remained focused on their negotiation communications and hostage control. In the ballroom's northeast corner, Sophia had positioned herself near a group of particularly valuable hostages, including several finance ministers and Saudi royalty. Her intelligence training allowed her to gather critical information through careful observation while maintaining her hospitality director cover. When Blackwood next passed her position, she communicated her findings through a specialized silent communication technique they'd both learned in intelligence training. 12-minute guard rotation pattern, command team communicating on separate channel from security team, technical specialist operating jamming equipment from mezzanine control room. This intelligence proved invaluable for Blackwood's developing strategy. The separate communication channels indicated a vulnerability he could exploit, while the jamming equipment location explained why their sophisticated communication blocking remained effective despite the backup systems Blackwood had previously installed. Using the modified access card, Blackwood created a brief opportunity to reach a maintenance corridor during his next collection assignment. This 37-second window allowed him to activate the emergency communication device, establishing contact with Monaco's special police unit that had established a command center outside the hotel. Blackwood, Royal Crest, security, he transmitted concisely. Inside ballroom with hostile 27 attackers, military trained, divided into specialized teams. Hostages segregated by value with Saudi minister designated as first execution, maintaining cover as server, implementing internal countermeasures. The response was immediate, the tactical commander's surprise evident even in the brief transmission. Confirm your position and capabilities. Established multiple countermeasure options prior to attack, Blackwood replied, monitoring his exposure time carefully. Currently gathering intelligence and preparing staged response. Will create extraction opportunities for tactical teams when positioned. This brief communication fundamentally altered the external response dynamic. What had been a standard hostage negotiation with seemingly limited options now included an invaluable internal asset with special operations background. Blackwood provided concise building intelligence before returning to the ballroom, his absence having gone undetected during a guard transition he'd previously timed. Over the next hour, Blackwood systematically accessed additional equipment caches he'd positioned throughout the hotel during his paranoid preparation phase. Each cache contained specialized tools rather than conventional weapons, electronic countermeasures, tactical distraction devices, and communication equipment that would allow coordinated response when the moment came. The true genius of Blackwood's approach became increasingly apparent as his counter-operation developed. Rather than attempting a direct confrontation with heavily armed attackers, a suicide mission given the disparity in conventional firepower, he was implementing a comprehensive systematic disruption designed to create cascading failures in their operation. While collecting phones from the western section, Blackwood identified another potential ally, a Qatari security officer, who had maintained cover during the initial attack. Through subtle signals established during his military career, Blackwood confirmed the man's training and incorporated him into the developing response network. Sophia, meanwhile, had created a medical emergency distraction by helping an elderly Japanese banker feign heart problems. The resulting disruption allowed Blackwood to access the ballroom's lighting control panel, where he implemented a critical modification that would allow remote manipulation of the ballroom's environmental systems when needed. As the 5-hour mark approached, tension among both hostages and attackers increased noticeably. The deadline for the first execution was approaching, with negotiations still ongoing. Sentinel, the operation leader, made a public example of the Saudi petroleum minister, forcing him to kneel in the ballroom's center while delivering a final ultimatum to authorities. 1 hour remains before this man's execution, he announced through the communication system. Our technical team confirms no transfer activity to the designated accounts. Perhaps a demonstration of our resolve is required to accelerate the process. This escalation created both heightened risk and operational opportunity. As attention focused on the center stage drama, Blackwood utilized the distraction to implement the final phase of his preparation, positioning key allies for coordinated action and activating the specialized countermeasures he'd established throughout the controlled area. Using the server's access to move between hostage groups, Blackwood provided final instructions to his small network, cooperating specialists. On my signal, environmental controls will fail, creating momentary darkness and ventilation surge. East section team moves hostages to service corridor. West section creates medical distraction. Qatari security neutralizes communication specialists. Each component was designed not as a direct confrontation, but as part of a systematic disruption that would create cascading failures in the hostage-taker's carefully controlled operation. Blackwood's approach reflected his special forces training, asymmetric response against superior conventional force, creating operational chaos that negated the enemy's advantages. As the execution deadline approached, Blackwood confirmed external tactical team positioning through his concealed communication device. Monaco's special police unit had established assault positions based on his intelligence, prepared to exploit the opportunities his internal countermeasures would create. Sentinel moved to the center of the ballroom, weapon raised toward the kneeling Saudi minister. It appears demonstration is indeed necessary, he announced coldly. Perhaps the next negotiation will proceed more efficiently. It was at this precise moment, with all attention focused on the imminent execution, that Blackwood initiated the counter-operation that would later be studied in tactical response programs worldwide. The counter-operation began not with conventional confrontation, but with a cascade of system failures that the hostage-takers had believed impossible given their technical countermeasures. The ballroom's primary lighting failed suddenly, plunging the space into darkness for 3 crucial seconds before emergency lighting activated, creating momentary disorientation among the attackers who had grown accustomed to complete environmental control. Simultaneously, the ventilation system surged with a mechanical groan, filling the space with a high-pressure air release that created both noise disruption and temporary visibility reduction. These synchronized failures were no malfunction, but the precise triggering of emergency protocols Blackwood had previously modified for tactical advantage. In the critical moment of confusion, Blackwood's network of allies implemented their assigned roles with coordinated precision. The Qatari security specialist neutralized the communication technician who had been monitoring the jamming equipment, creating a momentary vulnerability in the attacker's information control. Sophia led the first group of high-value hostages toward a service entrance Blackwood had previously prepared with modified access, while the former British operator created a diversionary medical emergency in the western section. Blackwood himself moved with the fluid efficiency that had defined his special forces career, transitioning instantly from subservient server to tactical operator. His first priority was not direct engagement, but systematic disruption of the attacker's command and control structure, targeting their communication systems, leadership isolation protocols, and situational awareness. Using equipment from his concealed caches, Blackwood implemented electronic countermeasures that created false communications on the attacker's frequency, generating contradictory commands that amplified their confusion. This technical disruption coincided with physical countermeasures, remote-triggered smoke releases in strategic locations, and emergency alarm activations in sections distant from actual evacuation routes. Security breach in East Corridor. Came a panic transmission from one of the perimeter teams, responding to a diversionary device Blackwood had positioned hours earlier. This false information drew critical resources away from actual evacuation routes, creating opportunities for hostage movement. Sentinel, the operation leader, immediately recognized that his carefully controlled scenario was degrading but misidentified the cause. Police breach in progress, he barked to his command team. Implement hostage consolidation protocol. This mistaken assessment played directly into Blackwood's strategy, creating response patterns that further distributed the attacking force, while generating additional confusion about the actual threat nature. As hostage takers rushed to implement their pre-planned response to external breach, they remained unaware that the true counter-operation was being orchestrated from within. Blackwood maintained communication with the external tactical team through his concealed device, coordinating their movements with his internal disruption. Eastern Service Corridor, clear for primary extraction. Second hostage group, moving now. Maintain position at north entrance until signal. The systematic evacuation continued beneath the chaos of alarms, smoke and communication confusion. Sophia and the allied security specialists moved small groups of hostages through routes Blackwood had prepared, prioritizing the highest value targets that had been designated for execution. When direct confrontation became unavoidable, Blackwood employed the close-quarters combat expertise that had made him a Special Forces legend. Using improvised weapons from his server's equipment and environmental objects, he neutralized isolated hostage takers with the silent efficiency that minimized operational disruption. Each engagement was calculated not merely for immediate tactical advantage, but for how it contributed to the overall systematic collapse of the hostage operation. In the command position, Sentinel finally recognized the true nature of what was happening. "This is internal," he hissed to his remaining command team. "Security operation from within. Find whoever is coordinating this." By this point, however, the hostage takers' operational integrity had been fatally compromised. Their carefully planned control measures had been systematically dismantled, their communication coherence destroyed, and their tactical advantage eliminated through environmental manipulation and resource misdirection. As the external tactical team executed their coordinated breach through access points Blackwood had identified, they encountered a significantly degraded opposition, disorganized, confused, and already engaged with internal threats they couldn't properly identify. What should have been a high-casualty confrontation with professional hostage takers instead became a systematic neutralization of an already compromised force. Blackwood himself engaged Sentinel in the final phase of the operation, approaching not as a direct confrontation, but through the tactical deception that had characterized the entire response. Appearing as a hostage being evacuated during the confusion, he maneuvered into position before neutralizing the operation leader, with precise efficiency that reflected decades of special operations experience. As tactical teams secured the ballroom and medical personnel attended to traumatized hostages, General Manager Devereaux stared in disbelief at the security director he had dismissed as paranoid and relegated to serving champagne. "This is impossible," he stammered, watching Blackwood calmly directing the final security sweep with the natural command presence of a career special operator. "Not impossible," Blackwood replied without breaking his operational focus. "Just required preparation you considered excessive." The full scope of what Marcus Blackwood had accomplished became apparent only in the operation's aftermath. 312 hostages extracted with 0 civilian casualty. 27 highly trained attackers neutralized through a combination of systematic disruption, environmental manipulation, and precisely coordinated response. What terrorism experts had initially assessed as a non-survivable scenario given the attackers' professionalism had been transformed into one of the most successful hostage resolutions in security history. As Monaco police secured the hotel and medical teams attended to traumatized guests, Sophia approached Blackwood in the command post established in the hotel's conference center. "The Saudi minister is asking specifically for you," she informed him. Apparently being saved from execution has made him revise his opinion about excessive security protocols. Blackwood nodded, continuing to coordinate the final security sweep with the tactical team commander. "I'll speak with him once the building is fully secure." The hotel owners are also requesting an immediate meeting, Sophia added with a slight smile. Their perspective on appropriate security measures appears to have evolved considerably in the past 6 hours. This understated observation captured the dramatic reversal that was already unfolding. The same executives who had dismissed Blackwood's security protocols as paranoid and disruptive to the luxury experience were now facing both the vindication of his assessment and international attention on how their decisions had contributed to the hotel's vulnerability. Later that evening, as the initial crisis response transitioned to investigation and recovery, Blackwood finally had a moment to process the operation. From a professional perspective, the attackers had demonstrated sophisticated planning, technical expertise, and tactical discipline consistent with special operations background, far beyond typical terrorist capability. Preliminary identification confirms your assessment, noted the Monaco police commander, joining Blackwood in the security office. Former military specialists, primarily Eastern European, operating as mercenaries rather than ideological terror. Their operational planning suggests months of preparation and possible inside information. Blackwood had already reached the same conclusion. The attack incorporated detailed knowledge of the hotel's security systems, guest movements, and staff protocols. They had access to information that would require either long-term surveillance or internal sources. This analysis raised uncomfortable questions about potential security compromises within the Royal Crest's operation, questions that would become central to the international investigation already taking shape. The following morning, Blackwood found himself in the hotel owner's private conference room, facing a dramatically different reception than his previous management meetings. The board chairman, who had flown in overnight from London, led a discussion that bordered on apologetic. Mr. Blackwood, the board wishes to formally acknowledge that your security assessments were not only accurate, but critically important, the chairman stated, discomfort evident in his usually confident demeanor. The measures you implemented, resistance from management, clearly saved numerous lives and prevented what could have been a catastrophic outcome. Beside him, General Manager Devereaux maintained uncharacteristic silence, his expression reflecting the profound reassessment occurring throughout the organization. We would like to discuss a significant expansion of your authority and resources, the chairman continued, including implementation of the comprehensive security protocols you originally proposed, with whatever enhancements you deem necessary following this incident. Blackwood considered this offer with the same measured assessment he applied to tactical situations. My original security recommendations remain valid, with adjustments based on vulnerabilities identified during the attack. However, effective implementation requires organizational commitment beyond immediate crisis response. You have that commitment, the chairman assured him. The board has authorized whatever resources you require. Your successful response to this situation has demonstrated the value of what we previously considered excessive precautions. This dramatic reversal reflected more than corporate self-interest. The hostage situation at the Royal Crest Monaco had instantly become a defining case study in luxury hospitality security, an industry-wide wake-up call about vulnerability previously subordinated to guest experience concern. As the meeting concluded, Sophia waited outside with updated security reports. International media is requesting interviews with the hero's security director, who saved 300 VIPs, she informed him with professional detachment, but couldn't quite conceal her amusement at his evident discomfort with the attention. Decline all interview requests, Blackwood responded immediately. Security effectiveness depends on methodologies remaining confidential. That may be challenging given the circumstances. Sophia noted, you've become the central figure in what's being called the most extraordinary solo security operation in civilian history. Several hostages have already provided detailed accounts to media. Indeed, the narrative emerging in international coverage focused increasingly on the remarkable story of a security director whose paranoid preparations had been mocked and dismissed, only to prove life-saving when the unthinkable occurred. Financial publications particularly emphasized how the world's wealthiest individuals had been saved by security protocols
initially rejected as disruptive to their luxury experience. 2 days after the incident, as the hotel remained closed for investigation and security enhancement, Blackwood received an unexpected visitor. The Saudi petroleum minister, who had come closest to execution during the hostage situation, had returned specifically to meet with him. Mr. Blackwood, the minister, began with formal gravity. I've directed my security team to study every aspect of your response operation. What you accomplished with minimal resources against overwhelming opposition represents a complete revision of our understanding of asymmetric security response. Blackwood acknowledged this assessment with professional modesty. Preparation and environmental knowledge can offset conventional tactical advantages. Indeed, the minister agreed. Which brings me to the purpose of my visit. I oversee security for Saudi Arabia's critical petroleum infrastructure, facilities facing sophisticated threats, similar to what we experienced here. I would like to discuss your availability for a comprehensive security consultation. This request would prove to be merely the first of many. As details of Blackwood's extraordinary response operation became known in security circles, his methodology created a fundamental reassessment of luxury security paradigms worldwide. The balance between invisible service and effective protection, previously tilted heavily toward guest experience, shifted toward a new model that incorporated Blackwood's systematic approach to high-value environment security.
International Security Directors Association Conference, Zurich. 6 months later, the Grand Conference Hall of the Zurich Convention Center fell silent as Marcus Blackwood approached the podium. Before him sat the most influential gathering of security professionals in the world, assembled to hear his keynote address on what had become known in security circles, the Royal Crest methodology. Effective security in high-value environments requires fundamental recalibration of traditional approaches, Blackwood began, his presentation style reflecting the same precise efficiency that characterized his operational methods. The balance between guest experience and protective capability must be resolved through systematic preparation rather than visible deployment. On the large screens behind him, sophisticated security systems displayed the practical implementation of his methodology, protective measures seamlessly integrated into luxury environments, without compromising the guest experience that had previously been considered incompatible with comprehensive security. In the front row, executives from the world's most exclusive hotel brands watched with focused attention, including the Royal Crest leadership team. General Manager Devereaux, whose dismissive attitude had nearly resulted in catastrophe, now displayed the attentive respect of someone who had experienced a profound paradigm shift through direct experience. The Royal Crest incident demonstrated a critical vulnerability in traditional luxury security approaches. Blackwood continued, when visible security is sacrificed for guest comfort, alternative protective methodology must be systematically implemented to maintain operational capability during crisis scenarios. This diplomatic framing of what had been in reality a complete validation of his paranoid preparations drew knowing smiles from many of the security professionals present. The industry publications had been less restrained, with headlines like "Rejected Security Chief Saves World's Wealthiest in Solo Operation" and "Excessive Security Protocols Save 300 VIPs When Management Protocols Failed." As Blackwood outlined the technical specifications of his methodology, security technology companies in the exhibition hall were already showcasing systems specifically designed to implement his approach, protective measures that maintained comprehensive security while remaining invisible to guest experience. What had begun as one security director's excessive protocols had evolved into an industry-wide reassessment of the fundamental balance between luxury and protection. Following his presentation, Blackwood found himself approached by security directors from properties worldwide, all seeking to implement variations of his methodology in their own operation. Among them was the chief security officer for a major royal family, whose perspective had been profoundly affected by nearly losing several family members in the Royal Crest incident. Your systematic approach to invisible security
has revolutionized our thinking, the Royal Security Chief acknowledged. We've completely revised our protection protocols based on your methodologies. Blackwood accepted this professional recognition with characteristic modesty. The fundamental principles have always existed in military special operations. The innovation was adapting them to civilian luxury environments without compromising either mission. The Saudi petroleum minister, who had been seated among the distinguished guests, approached with several technical specialists. The infrastructure protection systems you designed for our facilities have been implemented across our critical operations, he informed Blackwood. Your methodology has proven adaptable to environments far beyond hospitality security. Indeed, what had begun as luxury hotel protocols had expanded into a comprehensive approach to high-value environment protection across multiple industries, from financial institutions to corporate headquarters, diplomatic facilities, and critical infrastructure. The core principles Blackwood had implemented at the Royal Crest now informed security design worldwide. Henry Devereux approached somewhat hesitantly, his previous arrogance replaced by evident humility. The Royal Crest Monaco is now recognized for having the most sophisticated security in luxury hospitality, he noted, though we learned that lesson through nearly catastrophic. Security effectiveness is often only truly valued after demonstration, Blackwood observed diplomatically, acknowledging the profound transformation in the manager's perspective. Later that evening, at a reception for conference speakers, Sophia joined Blackwood with an amused expression. Your methodology has created an entirely new security category, she noted. Every luxury property now claims to implement Blackwood protocol in their marketing materials. Hopefully they're implementing the actual methodology, rather than just the terminology, Blackwood replied with characteristic focus on practical effectiveness rather than recognition. Most are making genuine efforts, Sophia confirmed. The Royal Crest incident created unprecedented awareness among property owners about vulnerabilities they'd previously ignored. Your response proved that comprehensive security can exist without compromising luxury experience. This transformation represented the most meaningful aspect of Blackwood's legacy, not the professional recognition or methodological adoption, but the fundamental shift in how high-value environment security was conceptualized and implemented. The false dichotomy between guest experience and comprehensive protection had been resolved through his innovative approach to invisible security integration. 1 year after the Royal Crest incident, the methodologies Blackwood had developed had become industry standard across luxury hospitality, executive protection, and high-value environment security. Security directors worldwide now implemented variations of his systematic approach, balancing comprehensive protection with the invisible service that defined luxury operation. For Marcus Blackwood himself, the most significant outcome wasn't the professional recognition or consulting opportunities that had followed his extraordinary operation, but the transformation in institutional perspective that had resulted. The same excessive security protocols that had been mocked and dismantled were now recognized as essential components of responsible high-value protection. As he prepared to implement his methodology at another exclusive property facing sophisticated threats, Blackwood reflected briefly on the journey from dismissed security director to industry-defining methodology creator. The fundamental lesson transcended security operations. The value of specialized expertise is often only truly recognized when the theoretical threats become catastrophically real. If this incredible story of an underestimated security expert saving hundreds of elite hostages captured your imagination, hit that subscribe button to join our community. Have you ever seen someone's excessive preparation prove absolutely essential when crisis strikes? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We read every single one and would love to hear your stories. Do you think luxury venues still prioritize appearance over security, or has this lesson been learned? Let us know. And don't forget to turn on notifications by clicking the bell icon so you never miss our daily uploads of extraordinary true stories that remind us heroes often hide in plain sight.